There we go.
Hey, Denise.
Hey, can you see me? Can you hear me, Jennifer?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, you can't see me though, right? For some reason.
Right. Yep.
Okay, let's see what's wrong now. I love my computer. I just love
Yes.
my computer. It's time for a new one. Hi, Kent. How are you? Let's see. I can't see me though. Video. Oh, here we go. Video settings. Virtual background. There we go. Does that work? Let's see. Okay, it's still not there. There we go.
Hey, Dwayne.
Hey, what's up, guys? I'm early with everybody else.
Awesome.
Awesome.
How are you doing?
Great.
Good.
Still seems like spring and fall in Georgetown, so I don't think we're ever going to get any snow.
No, I missed it quite a bit, but it's a good thing.
Yeah, for sure.
We've gotten a lot of wind though. It blew
Yeah,
out Jason's back window on his Range Rover.
Oh, that's a bummer.
Yeah, and another neighbor of ours, their window blew out too in their car. So
Man, that's no good.
no, it's not. It's Georgetown.
Yeah,
We're gonna plant
we thought
tall trees.
we thought the windows on the house was going to blow out. They were shaking pretty good.
I know.
A few times.
I thought this whole, well, the funny part is I thought here at Millsite, I swore I could have felt upstairs that the whole room just shifted a little bit. It was weird. And I was laying in bed watching TV and I'm like, is this actually moving or what? I thought I was going to be flying out of my bedroom one day. But
yeah, my house. Yeah, mine and Doug's, he's just, a block away. It shook the house a few times.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's crazy. We're kind of in the direct line where we're at now. So it's, I used all the hurricane straps and tie downs and everything. So it's still, it's a win when it can bounce stuff around a little.
Yeah.
Are we there?
We're here.
Good. What do we have Jerry here for?
Is Jerry the town attorney? Who's Jerry?
I know Jerry.
I'm Jerry. I'm the town attorney. I'm just here mostly to watch. If there might be some procedural questions, etc., I'm always available for that. That's how come I'm here. And it's good to see you, Ed.
Same here.
You know, we both still look great, Ed.
Yes, we do.
Amazing. The time goes by and we look the same. Other people age. You and me, we're good.
My hair is a bit longer than yours.
But it's a lot darker.
Yeah.
Lucky devil.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you guys get any wind up there today? I'll bet you did.
No.
Yeah.
I'm in Evergreen and it's always a little less windy here than
Hey, Kent,
Yes, sir.
I saw the two or 3 days ago, I watched when the big tent blew down,
Oh, the yurt. Yeah.
the big
Are
one.
you talking about the big yurt or the little tents?
well, they're all gone.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
and then the blue one, the big one, the green one, it blew out completely. It was destroyed.
Well, you took that big breath and you blew that direction, Ed. So yeah, that was a pretty sad day for the brew pub. That's
Oh
for
yeah.
sure.
Oh, I was thinking about. I watched Craig doing it.
Yeah, I had his track hoe
Yeah.
with the bucket sitting on top of that thing, didn't you, Craig?
Yeah.
Hey, Craig.
Ed's bringing it up. I didn't bring
Ed,
it
I don't
up.
want to talk about it, Ed.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have to tell you, I was looking in my into Inhouser, and I went out to look to your restaurant up there, and there goes boom.
Yeah. I'm glad I wasn't there for it. I was there soon after, but I wasn't there for it. So
Yeah, I watched it. It went. Oh man.
yeah, I heard the guy said it was, you could see that microburst coming and it was unbelievable.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're lucky we have a lot worse stuff. It was we could have been a suburb of Denver.
Yeah.
It was when your house shakes a little bit, that's scary stuff.
It was howling.
Yep.
Yeah, it looks like we're just missing. Is Ann? Looks like we're missing Ann.
Oh, she's
No,
here.
I'm here. I'm
Awesome.
here.
Gotcha. I couldn't see your picture. So we have everybody. I think so. All right, Ken, I'll get the meeting started if we're not waiting on anybody else.
Yeah, I think Marv will join us here shortly.
All right, perfect. Ken, we good to start? All right, it is Wednesday, January 20th, 2021, 6 p.m. And call this meeting to order. Roll call, Kathleen Heft.
Here.
Ann Wilkins,
Here.
Ed Hoover,
Here.
Denise Newton.
Here,
All right, motion to approve the agenda.
I motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Hi.
I guess we just go directly to new business. We don't have any audience business, do we? Jen, by chance?
No, I haven't heard of any audience business.
All right, the new business is the Washington Mill Site preliminary plat. It's open to the public hearing. I
Just say
guess
the time, Dwayne.
the time is 6:01. And Should I go through just the rules, Kent?
You can.
Just
Just,
yeah, once the hearing starts, we'll do a staff presentation, questions from the staff, from the board commission, and then we're doing applicant presentation, then questions of applicant from the board commission, and then a public testimony. If you have questions from the public, they will be addressed by the staff and applicant after the public testimony is concluded. So yeah, we can do the staff presentation.
Okay, well, I'm probably the guy that's gonna be doing the staff presentation, so I better introduce myself. Kurt Landers, I am the town's contract planner, and I want to kind of walk through an overview of the staff report that we've prepared. It's about a 5-page staff report plus a number of attachments. Hopefully all of you have a copy of that with you. Those attachments include the preliminary subdivision plat application for the Washington Mill site, which is the subject of this public hearing tonight. Planning Commission meeting minutes, which included information on the conceptual plan for the Washington Mill site. Those are dated November 18th, 2020. Then we have several referrals from Clear Creek County Planning Department, Upper Clear Creek Watershed Association, the Clear Creek Fire Authority, Clear Creek County Environmental Health Department, Colorado Geological Survey, Xcel Energy, which also included their right to serve letter, and that's in the application. CDPHE, Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment. And then finally, we did receive a letter from one resident, Dr. Kathleen Hunanen, who is an environmental scientist. So that's the packet of information that all of you should have in front of you. Let me start by talking about the steps that we have for approval of a subdivision plat. The preliminary subdivision plat, which is the subject of tonight's meeting, is the second application step that's required in the town's 3-stage major subdivision review process. The Planning Commission, as you know, conditionally approved the first step, which was that conceptual subdivision plan back on November 18th. Town board approval, of course, is not required for conceptual plan approval. And a conceptual plan is good for about a year from the date of its approval by the Planning Commission. We do have a complete preliminary subdivision plat application that was submitted for the Washington Mill subdivision on December 17th. And that application requires review by the Planning Commission and approval by the town board. So after this meeting, we'll have a town board meeting next week to also review this application. And then the final step in the 3-step subdivision approval process is for the final plat, which may only occur after the preliminary subdivision plat has been approved. So that's a little bit about the process. In terms of the property itself, it's approximately a 1-acre site, 0.94 acres, located in a 900 block of Main Street and Middle Street. The proposal here is to subdivide the parcel into 6 lots and construct a single-family home on each particular lot. The subdivision itself will create 3 lots fronting Main Street, 2 lots fronting Biddle, and 1 lot which will front both the double frontage lot. The proposed subdivision is consistent with the town's comprehensive plan land use designation, which designates the property as town residential. The current zoning on the site is historic residential, and the surrounding zoning is also historic residential on all sides of the property. The current land use of the property is vacant and undeveloped. There are no structures on the site currently. Surrounding land use to the southwest and east are all single-family residential. And then there's 2 vacant lots known as lots 1 and 2 on the north side of the property. The substantive comments that staff have really are centered around the conditions of approval. Back on November 18th, the Planning Commission stated that they would approve conceptual plan on the condition that the Colorado Geological Survey and the Colorado Health Department approve the solutions to the concerns that they had, which centered around the information received by CGS as well as CDPHE. The CGS essentially had 2 concerns. The first of which was that the site is located on a debris fan. And the second was related to what they term as mine mill waste, and is also referred to here in the application as waste rock debris. CGS noted that the site was located on a debris fan and that the hazard appears to be a low hazard under the current slope and vegetation conditions. They did indicate that there is the potential for what they term a debris inundation hazard, and that may increase as a result of events that reduce such things as hillside vegetation, avalanches, wildfires, grading, et cetera. There's a number of things that they listed there. Of course, they're recommending avoidance as their preferred mitigation measure. They discourage essentially any development or additional density on debris fans. The west extent of that debris fan is now shown on the preliminary subdivision site plan. And we've noted that consideration should be given to locating building envelopes for residential homes outside the debris fan, if at all possible. The second item that they raised was similar to what was identified by CDPHE, and that is what they term the mine mill waste being located in the northeastern portion of the site. And that extent of waste rock debris is now shown on the preliminary subdivision plat site plan as well. PHE, they identified a few different things. They recommended that there be some sampling conducted on the mine waste and the on-site soils prior to any disturbance or development of the site. If you recall at the Planning Commission meeting, we didn't have that information yet. There wasn't, we didn't know at that point in time what the situation was exactly. Since that time, there's been results of soil testing on the eastern edge of that proposed lot 8 in particular, which is the area which has the mine waste deposits, indicating that lead and arsenic are present in concentrations that would exceed acceptable levels. CDPHE recommended that a development plan be prepared. It's called a materials management plan to ensure that any impacted materials are properly managed during the property development. And that plan was prepared and included in the preliminary subdivision plat application. So you'll have that information in your packet as well. In addition, there's another item here that we wanted to point out, and that had to do with Biddle Street. It's currently shown as traveled, minus 12 feet. So we want to note that additional right-of-way for Biddle Street may be necessary, which could impact the platting of lots 6, 7, and 8. And that all of the engineering design for any public street improvement or water and sanitary sewer improvements is required to be done in accordance with the town's adopted construction standards. There will be there'll be extensions of both the town water main and the town sewer main to serve the property. There will be agreements necessary with the property owner for the installation of those mains, and that'll be happening essentially at the final subdivision plat application. So with that, I'd like to pause for a moment and just ask the Planning Commission if there's any questions that you have of me at this point.
I'd like to discuss a little more about Lot 8, the one that has the debris fan material on it. And I may be getting ahead of myself at this point. So am I understanding correctly that Lot 8 would be unbuildable as it is, and that the suggestion was that construction happen outside of the debris fan?
That's a very good question. I think probably for specific questions about Lot 8 and the details of that, I probably should defer to the applicant and their presentation on that issue.
Okay.
You guys-
Martin, sorry to interrupt, and I promised that I wouldn't, so I won't, I'll try to keep it short. Martin, can you, yeah, Kent says, okay, that's one strike against you, Jerry. Do I get 3 strikes? I get 3. On Biddle Street, is that, there's as traveled shown on the plat materials. Is the traveled portion it's highlighted there, does that lie within the platted Biddle Street that we are aware of, or not? I'm just, that may be relevant to the commission at some point here.
Right. Right now it's noted as plus or minus 12 feet. So that's quite a bit, right?
Okay.
So possibly, I guess, it potentially could be, but right now it's kind of shown on the outside edge of that 40-foot right of way.
Okay. I see that Craig's probably got more to say about that, and we'll let the applicant's presentation address it, but I know that is something to be aware of.
Do you have any more questions from the board? All right, we'll move on to the applicant presentation with Craig Abrahamson and Marvin Geisness. You guys can speak.
Thank you. I will need to share my screen at some point. So Jennifer, I'm not sure if I'm enabled already or not, but Marv, did you want to introduce, or would you like me to go ahead?
Go ahead. Craig has spent a great deal of time in the last 6 weeks or 8 weeks since we were last in front of you. We think he's had very good discussions with I'll call it the state EPA, but I know it's those other alphabets. And I think in conjunction with them, a good plan on how to handle Lot 8. And I did not understand the difference between a debris fan and a mine waste until recently, and maybe he can clarify that issue as well. Craig.
Okay. Planning Commission members, thank you. Martin, thank you for the summary of the staff report. If I'm looking away, I'm looking at my other screen here, not trying to be rude. That's just the way it works in Zoom land. So I'll jump right in, just a quick introduction, overview, and then really the focus of our presentation tonight dives into the staff report and comments and questions raised during the staff report. So I'll go ahead and share my screen here. And can everybody see that?
Yes.
All right. So again, we're talking about the Washington Mills property located between Main Street and Biddle Street and 9th Street and 10th Street here in Georgetown. It's about 40,800 square feet. Like Martin said, just under an acre. It is one of the few parcels in town that wasn't platted into fairly typical sized, 35-foot wide, 75-foot deep kind of lots. There's a number of them in town, but relative to the total number of parcels, there's relatively few. So that just kind of gives you an overview there in terms of the vicinity of the property. As you can see in the site plan here, Again, I said 40,841 square feet. There'll be 3 lots accessed from Biddle. And I say 3 will be accessed from Biddle because it's envisioned that the structure on lot 6 will be accessed off of Biddle as a more practical means rather than Main Street down here. So in all likelihood, you'll have 3 and 3 in terms of access off of Biddle and Main Street respectively. As Martin pointed out, the project includes substantial public improvements, including a new 6-inch water main that'll run from 10th Street all the way to 9th Street and create a loop. And anybody who understands public infrastructure knows that that's a good thing for everybody. The sanitary sewer won't be looped as it's not really necessary. There'll be a manhole here right about the division between, this is Draxie's house for anybody who knows where that is. My house is right over here. But there'll be a new 8-inch sewer main that's installed in Main Street here, along with 2 manholes. The second manhole down here kind of corrects an alignment issue as it relates to this existing manhole here. There'll also be a new natural gas main installed to serve the properties. That'll be paid for by the developer, an applicant, Marvin. There are utility access easements located on each of the Main Street lots here to provide access to utilities to Main Street and that new infrastructure. Now we'll kind of jump into the meat of things here. As Martin noted, there's a suggestion by staff that we modify the lot numbers, size, and subdivision layout to allow for residential building envelopes outside of the existing or potential, it's referred to in his memo as environmental hazards. It's specifically the debris fan addressed by CGS. This map is the geological map for the Georgetown Quadrangle, and the map from which, one of the maps from which a determination as to the location of these type of geologic hazards is made. That's the overview of Georgetown. I'll kind of zoom in a little bit here. You can see Georgetown Lake right here, the lagoon area. And as you work your way down, here's 2nd Street down here, just to give everybody an idea. And as you can see right here at the tip of this arrow, it's actually highlighted, but it's so small you can't see it, is the Washington Mills subdivision that we're discussing tonight. There are no less than 7 of these debris fields in the Georgetown municipal limits. And a large majority of the existing residential structures in the town of Georgetown are in fact built on these debris fans. You can see down here where Scepter Circle, Muscovites, the areas directly east of the lagoon are. That entire portion of the Meadows subdivision is constructed on a debris fan. The entire area from Clear Creek Drive, where it turns east-west, and between there and 15th Street, with the exception of Buckeye Circle here, that entire portion of the subdivision, with a couple of exceptions, is built on a debris fan, which I have labeled number 2. There's also a debris fan located over here on the west side of Argentine Street, just north of 11th. Again, for reference, this is 15th Street here, 2nd Street down here. And you can see there's a 4th debris fan right here, a 5th debris fan right here, which is the one that's of interest in this conversation, a 6th one right here that covers about a quarter of the historic downtown area, and a 7th that covers most of Loop Drive as well as Spring Street. I'm going to zoom in a little bit more because the debris fan that we're discussing is the smallest of the 7 that I just described. So I'm going to go ahead and zoom in just a hair here so we can get a sense. This red box here represents the subject property that we're discussing. This area here represents the debris fan as identified in the CGS map. Existing residential development exists above, below, and on both sides of the subject property and within that debris fan, some of those structures dating back to the 1870s. I just want to give everybody some perspective here. In Georgetown, it's very likely that your house is either on a debris fan or it's in the 100-year floodplain. There's a few properties that fall outside either one of those, but those are in the minority rather than majority. So geologic hazards are part of living and building in the high country in Colorado, and I think that's a generally accepted premise. I want to just point out that CGS, I'm going to quote a sentence out of there: the debris inundation hazard to which the proposed homes would be exposed is similar to that of existing homes constructed on the same fan, and the hazard appears to be low under current slope and vegetation conditions. Yes, the slope and vegetation conditions will be changed insofar as there'll be some smoothing, but there's not intended to be substantial changes in the grading on the property. The property will be revegetated. It may not be with native grasses as it is now, but it will be revegetated. So we don't believe that the development is going to change the conditions of that debris fan in a way that invalidates the relatively low risk that it represents. And again, we're talking about 6 buildings. And I just gave you some perspective in terms of the total number of structures in Georgetown on existing platted lots that are already built on similar geologic hazards. With regard to the recommendation that the subdivision be reconfigured so that we can construct these single-family residences outside of that debris fan, I've kind of highlighted here the western extents of that debris fan on the site plan. So everything east, this is east to the top of the page, everything east of there is on the debris fan that we're talking about. You can see that from a practical perspective, the recommendation essentially makes any other questions we address tonight moot. It's simply impractical for us to subdivide this property in a way that allows for all of the structures to be built outside, or really all but one structure to be built outside of the debris fan.
So Greg, can I ask a question?
Sure.
I was under the impression that this grayed out area was the debris fan, and you're saying it actually goes all the way down to the red line.
So there's two different topics we're really discussing, and they do get intermingled because of the way CGS kind of wrote their letter.
Mm-hmm.
The grayed out area is the waste rock pile. That's the area of environmental concern, if you will, from a contaminated soil perspective. And we'll talk about that in some detail here in a moment. The debris fan is a geologic hazard, where this is a mine waste or environmental hazard. The debris fan is a natural geologic hazard. In other words, by virtue of erosion, since well before man was wandering around this fine planet that we have, weather brought down obviously significant amounts of material and created kind of those mounds, if you will, throughout town that, like I said, the majority of the Meadows subdivision is constructed on. Everything between the Griffith mine and the Capitol Prize mine, all the residences between those 2 points are constructed on a debris fan. And like I pointed out, Spring Street, a quarter of the downtown historic district, and so on, are all built on geologic hazards, and which is different from the mine waste question that we'll discuss here in a moment.
Thank you.
Thank you for pointing that out, Kathy. I meant to kind of address that early on, and I forgot. I'll move on. You can either interrupt me, or we can have questions at the end, or we can go back at any point. Sorry, I'm trying to stay a little bit organized here. So, sorry, for some reason my slide is not advancing. Oh, that's great. I've lost a couple of my exhibits here. I apologize. So we'll stay with this site plan. with regard to the waste rock, or mine waste, call it what you will, we just want to be very, very clear about the process that we undertook to come to the documents that are before the Planning Commission tonight and that staff has received. From the Planning Commission meeting, we took away that we needed to get with CDPHE and adequately address their concerns that were generally described in their letter. And I think you might remember from the last meeting, I've seen that letter probably 20 times in my career, with the exact same language. It's a standard letter that's sent out by CDPHE for all subdivisions, proposed subdivisions and other land use cases throughout Clear Creek County and a good portion of Gilpin County. Because Clear Creek County and Central City are in what's called the Clear Creek County or Clear Creek Central City Superfund Study Area. So in other words, there's potential for contaminated soil literally everywhere within Clear Creek County and a significant portion of southern Gilpin County. What we took away from the Planning Commission meeting is we needed to drill down and find out what specifically CDPHE wanted to see in a materials management plan, which they specifically suggested in their letter, what they wanted to see in that. So we drafted a materials management plan, myself and Robin Freiberger, our environmental consultant. And but before we did anything with that, we set up a meeting with Kyle Sandor, who's one of the CC'd individuals on CDPHE's letter, to get into specifics of what they were going to look for. From that Zoom call that Robin and I both attended, we finished refining the materials management plan for Lot 8. We submitted that to the town as part of our submittal package on December 17th. On January 6th, we had not heard anything about that, and knowing that we wanted to have some resolution or at least some comments back from them before this meeting, I sent Kyle Sandor an email saying, hey, haven't seen anything from the town on this. What's the status? He had not received it as of January 6th. So we sent that to him directly and asked for his comments. He replied, according to the email I got back, he did reply and CC the town clerk on his reply. He had comments in that letter. Here, is that the right one? I may not have Kyle's comments up in this. Again, my Adobe decided to reboot right before the meeting. Anyway, Kyle gave us very specific comments on that draft materials management plan. And those comments were then incorporated into the materials management plan. We drafted it on December 16th, revised it on the 10th when we received Kyle's comments back. Those comments were specifically incorporated, and you should have a copy of this, but anything that's underlined in that document is verbatim from Kyle Sandor's comments to the materials management plan. And really what it did was refine what our intent was. And I'll go through what the essence of the materials management plan is. The essence of it is that any contaminated soils, and that's presumably all of Lot 8, as that's where there's evidence of mine waste, needs to be capped with some type of clean material or other material that prevents or minimizes human contact with the contaminated soils. And we proposed that that be done in a number of different, potentially different ways. One would be to basically build a house on top of it, right? Or a combination of these, I should point out. The house counts as a cap because it isolates the material that's below the house, below the structure, from incidental human contact. For the portions that are not underneath the residence, 6 to 9 inch riprap rock, imported from offsite, to create basically kind of an armoring of the soil, or 18 inches of clean topsoil or common fill. So all three of those are acceptable means of isolating the potentially contaminated soils from human contact. And again, you'll notice that there's an underline here for clean. That was Kyle's only comment on this point, was that we add clean topsoil instead of just topsoil. So that's the essence of it. And that's very common practice for potentially contaminated materials, is to simply cap them in place. The whole idea is to minimize the opportunity for human contact, incidental human contact with that material. He did also highlight a few notes regarding making sure we don't have, we perform dust mitigation during the construction so that we don't have potentially contaminated material blowing off site, such as spraying water on the stockpiles, potentially covering, potentially revegetating, depending on how long the stockpile might be there. So I can go through this, word for word. I'm assuming everybody had the opportunity to read it. So I'll trust that you have some questions, and we'll ask those kind of as we wrap up here.
So Craig, I have a follow-up on the same issue.
Okay.
If you have to cut down some of the debris from Lot 8, what happens to the adjoining property? Do you build retaining walls to it, or you can't cover it all with just concrete? So I'm just curious, if you're coming down some, I understand the whole horizontal surface thing, but you get to a point where you have some vertical surfaces. Well, do you need me to clarify?
Let me take a stab at it, and then if I don't address your question, please tell me, okay?
Yep.
Again, the material will be, regardless, right? The materials management plan dictates that potentially contaminated soils on Lot 8 will be capped by one of three mechanisms, period.
Yep.
Does that?
No, what I'm saying, I do understand that. But what I'm saying is, you're capping your concrete either by building or by driveways. That's obvious. But if you have to cut down in order to get down to 9 to 12 inches or so of new soil, how do you keep the adjacent properties to the north and to the east from contaminating the new material that you're putting down? In other words,
I understand what you're saying.
Retaining wall, or?
Yeah, we don't anticipate, from a cut and fill perspective, we don't anticipate that we'll be moving material from one lot to another at any location on this property.
But I was not suggesting that. I'm just saying that.
Yes, it'll remain on the lot. So, for example, right here in this draft of the grading plan, there's actually a retaining wall right there. We didn't do that because of this potentially contaminated soils question. We did that because it makes logical sense given the likely architecture of the house. It'll probably include a walkout, just given the topography, and hence we want some kind of logically flat or semi-flat area outside that walkout, so that we can, logically locate the house on Lot 3 and Lot 4 and Lot 5.
So I was actually on Lot 8 referring to the north property line and the east property line. So if you cut down there, do you?
See, we won't be over on the north side of Lot 8. As you can see, so the dashed lines are the existing contours, the solid lines are proposed contours.
Right.
We don't anticipate doing any grading over there other than capping. Okay.
I understand. I'm just saying that if capping is concrete, you can't, well, maybe you can cover all of that with concrete. But I'm also suggesting one of your options was to build down and put this fabric between it, and then put the riprap and then the final soil. But you're now coming down a foot or so from the north line and from, you can't see me pointing, but from the east line and the north line in order to make room for that fill or for that capping.
Yes, I don't actually anticipate that over kind of in this northeast corner. I
Okay.
view that's likely going to receive the 6 to 9 inch riprap armoring
Mhm.
over in here. It would be over here on the south side that it would likely receive 18 inches of a soil cap, because that's going to be more of a typically pedestrian kind of area for the homeowners, if you will.
Okay.
Yeah, so the intent is to keep this material on lot 8, which we think we can do without an issue. And just so you know, this all involves a sampling component afterwards. So anything that's not covered either in the riprap or in concrete, unless it's imported material from a pit, we'll be sampling it to document that it is below those residential screening levels or background levels, as the case may be. So we're not just saying, oh yeah, we know it's clean. It's either coming from a source that we can be certain of its integrity, or it's going to be sampled at, once it's actually capped, or the stockpile that we use will be used for that.
I understand you. Let me just ask one additional way of saying it. I'm concerned that the debris goes upward from lot 8. So what do you do to keep the debris from falling down or washing over what you are doing on lot 8? Of the neighbors, not of your property, but of the neighbor's property.
During construction, post-construction, maybe that'll help me understand this.
Both during and post. In other words, you're
The
coming
north
down
side
the
of
hill.
lot 8 is 10th Street. The north side of lot 8 is 10th Street.
No, it's not, Marv. It's lot 1.
You're right.
Yeah. No, Kathy, I appreciate what you're saying. I'm having a hard time explaining, I guess, our intent. Again, we don't actually anticipate any disturbance over here in this northern and eastern portion of lot 8,
Okay.
other than to place the armoring material that will create that cap, right?
Okay.
The 6 to 9 inch riprap. The structure, just topographically and from a constructability perspective, makes sense to be placed over in this area of lot 8, as you can kind of see by our draft grading lines here. That will likelihood, the majority of that will be capped with the structure, right?
Right.
Basement floor, that kind of thing. Here to the east, that will, you're right, we will probably have to do some minor excavation in this area to create the driveway. That material will be kept on site, and if we have to relocate it to one of these other areas along or adjacent to the structure and then cap it with the clean fill, that's what we will do, depending on what the volumes are.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, I hope I answered that. Again, I apologize. I'm missing 2 exhibits out of my file here. I'll just jump to the last issue brought up in the staff report, and that is the right-of-way for Biddle Street. First of all, I maybe screwed this up. It should say 12 feet plus or minus, Martin, not plus or minus 12 feet. It's about a 12 to 14 foot travel right now, which is what we've kind of indicated here in the gray. Regarding the right-of-way and impacting the platting for lots 6, 7, and 8, Biddle Street has an existing 40-foot right-of-way. So there's more than adequate right-of-way if the town, for 3 additional parcels, were to conclude that it was necessary to widen 12 Biddle Street, then there's more than adequate right-of-way to accomplish that without impacting the existing property. So that was the only point I wanted to make on the comment regarding the platting of Biddle Street. And just kind of in closing, I just want to keep in perspective, because I think it's important and can get lost in the weeds a little bit. There's an existing parcel that has with it an existing use by right to construct a single family residence as well as accessory dwellings in the code. And so it's not as though we are proposing to take you know, a site that otherwise is not eligible for residential development and convert its use to residential and build and create these 6 lots. The right exists to do that. Arguably, the proposal really, in addition to, you know, obviously making or creating an opportunity for more structures, creates a higher and better use for the property by, instead of only facilitating 1 single family residence, facilitating 6 single family residences. But at the same time, really trying to reconfigure this parcel into something that conforms with as closely as possible with the other parcels that surround it. Right now, this is an outlier in terms of its configuration and size. You know, it's arguably about 8 times bigger than any lot within, you know, 2 blocks of it, except for City Park. So I just want to kind of put things in perspective in that regard, that this is this not only complies with the comprehensive plan, but actually brings the property closer into compliance with the comprehensive plan that it is in its existing form. So with that, I'll shut up and open it up for questions for myself or Marv. And I'll try and figure out how to stop sharing my screen.
If a board member does not have any questions, I'll have a couple questions for you, Craig.
Okay.
I just want to make sure that no board member has a question at this point. I don't see anyone speaking up or raising their hand.
Go ahead, Ken.
Going back to the debris fan, and I'm just doing more of this for general information. What's the danger of the debris fan? I mean, what is trying to avoid by not having building on debris fans? I don't understand, since there's already so much building on debris fans.
Yeah, I think it's my interpretation that, generally speaking, if this were a subdivision request that was taking place, say out in unincorporated Clear Creek County, where, you know, you've got a 40 or 50 or even 100-acre piece of property that was being subdivided for multiple homes, and it otherwise wasn't developed around it, and a large portion of it was on a debris fan, you would discourage that from a density perspective, because there's not already existing development on it. In terms of threat or risk, well, that material was transported there again. Well, I mean, all right,
Long
maybe
time
Dwayne,
ago. Yeah.
maybe Dwayne was around, but I wasn't around, and humans weren't walking the earth when that majority of that material was placed there through, you know, erosion events. So theoretically, you could have another significant erosion event that would inundate that property. Again, theoretically, if that happens, we've all got fairly significant issues that we're going to have to address. Sorry, guys. Go ahead.
Regarding the Biddle right away, I'll skip to that. I agree with you that there's additional right of way for the majority of Biddle, but right, and you can't see where I'm pointing, but it's just to the left of your cursor right now. there is an outcropping there that would make it difficult to move the current travel way of Biddle. You can see that's what it's trying to avoid. For about probably 40 feet.
Yeah.
The rest of the right of way, there's plenty of room to reshape it and, you know, make Biddle the actual travel way not really affect this property. It's really that outcropping, and you can see how close it comes to, and whatever the survey says as far as, you know, does it come to the edge of the property or does it step over the edge of the property for those about 40 feet to avoid the outcropping. That's really the only concern from that I can see, because it would take a little more effort. Not saying that it couldn't be done, but it's a little more effort for the town to take out that outcropping to keep the street within the right of way. That's probably the only concern from the town perspective, because the rest of the right of way, I think there's plenty of right of way. It's just where that outcropping is and how close that is. This from an actual survey or is this from
Yeah.
the topography scale?
No, this is from our PWSI, our surveyor.
Okay.
So
okay.
I appreciate, I tend not to answer questions that aren't asked, and I was replying specifically to whether or not there was adequate right of way, which there is. I guess perhaps the question is there really a need to make substantial improvements to Biddle Street? I would argue that there's not. But anyway.
Yeah, that may be a discussion at a little bit future stage, but for right now, that's the only concern, is that outcropping there and how it affects the travel way. And this is a large parcel. It is being subdivided. Is there, and I don't know if we covered this in the conceptual subdivision, is there any reason why this property has not been developed before? Or
Marv, you want to address
is there an
that?
underlying reason?
Yeah, well, I've owned the property since sometime in the late 80s, I believe. I can't remember exactly when it was. But I've had really no motivation to do anything with it for a long time. About 12 years ago, 13 years ago, I had come in with a proposal for one single family home that would have been positioned someplace probably around lot 7. And the whole issue of the debris fan that we're talking about tonight did not come up at that time at all. That just wasn't an issue. There were other issues that caused me to retreat from building that. It had been there was at one time, probably back in the 1880s, maybe early 90s, I'm not quite sure. I do have photographs of a significantly large L-shaped building on the site that was basically a rooming house, we think, because there was a big kitchen in the back with lots of bones thrown out the back door. And so the people that I bought it from, I don't recall, but I think it was in a family that just had no interest in Georgetown, and we finally were able to buy it. So you've had long-term owners without being motivated to develop it. I'm motivated now because I would like to provide Georgetown with a good finished product. I know I think the county had commissioned a plan several years ago about infill housing, and this was identified as one of the more significant for Georgetown. The other factor is interest rates are at a historic low for home mortgages. That won't last very long. And I want to take advantage of, having properties out there that interest rates are still pretty low for the buyers. I don't know if that completely answers your question, but it was just, I'm sure that it's just been a part of motivation on the part of the owners of the property for going back into the Depression years when Georgetown was practically gone.
Okay. Thank you, Marvin. Yeah, that helps. That's all I have, Dwayne. It's
All right,
just-
so we'll move on to the public testimony. There's questions from the public that will be addressed by staff or applicant after the public testimony is concluded. Do we have anything from the public? Jen, do we have anything from the public?
I see that we have 5 attendees, and I have put out in the chat a note that if they would like to speak, to type their name in, and then I can promote them to a panelist. I haven't had any of the attendees type me a message that they want to speak, so if anybody out there does want to speak, you guys can't talk right now, but you can type into the chat, and then I'll promote you so you can talk. You don't have to type out your comment or anything. Just let me know that you want to speak, and I'll promote you. Other than that, before today, I didn't receive any word that anybody wanted to make any public comments.
Jen, this is Jerry. Are we sure that if people sort of trying to attend can access the chat? Sometimes I see the chair beyond just the chat saying, okay, if there's anyone else that can merely unmute themselves on the phone. I just want to make sure there's not someone that, is not able to tell you on the chat that they want you to unmute them.
Yeah, okay, I see what you're saying. I mean, I can promote all of these people and we can ask them so nobody's missed if you want to do something like that, or I don't know.
I think that'd be good. What I wouldn't want is that someone tried to, testify in the public hearing and they were not able to for some reason.
Okay, well, I'm promoting all of the attendees now and giving them a chance, so they'll all be able to talk. So I guess we can just go through them. Michael, do you have any comments? Michael Stabby? I don't know if I'm saying your last name right. Sorry if I'm not.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, I just want to know how many members of the public are attending right now. And
there's 5.
Oh, are they all listed here? Yes, I see them.
Yes, they've all been promoted now.
My question is, it seems like you're going to put a lot of houses on the property. Whether that's the zoning is for it or not, most of the houses here have lots that have bigger acreage, at least in the historical section. Can anybody comment about that? Greg, okay, thank you.
Would it be easier if they had a question, we just have it answered right away, or should we wait till the end? It's okay to answer.
Yeah, it's okay to go ahead and answer that right away.
All right, perfect.
And Craig can probably be quicker than I am, or Martin, to answer that.
Perfect.
Yeah, I appreciate the question, Michael. Actually, a typical lot in this neighborhood is 3,750 square feet. And for example, both the lots that I'm on, just down the street from me, are both 3,750 square feet. The smallest proposed lot for this project is just over 5,000 square feet, because that is the minimum required by the current zoning regulations. So in order for these to be compliant, they've got to be 5,000 square feet or over. And you'll notice that lots 6, 7, and 8 are all actually much larger than that. You know, lot 6 is a little over 10,000 square feet. So it's actually, from a density perspective, a little bit lower than maybe typical for the neighborhood.
Okay. Am I still on? It seems like there's still going to be a large amount of houses on a small acreage. Am I still, can you still hear me? That's my response to that.
Okay. All right. Well, if that's your last response, then I'll go ahead and let someone else speak. Okay, Michael? George, I'm sorry, George Schnittgrund, do you have any comments or questions? Okay, it might take people a minute to unmute. I don't know. George, you're muted if you do want to make a comment.
I'm not really too sure.
Okay, go ahead. Who is this speaking?
This is George.
Oh, okay.
Our family happens to own all the property on the other side of Main Street between 9th and 10th. And so I'm just concerned about, the utilities and that kind of thing. But are you maximizing the development that you can do on that property? Is that, in your opinion, is that I mean, you've got 6 houses that you've got proposed, but is there a possibility that you could put like 8 or 9 houses there?
Should I go ahead and answer, Dwayne?
Yes, sorry. Go ahead and answer, Craig.
Okay. Thanks for the question, George. On the utilities, I'm not sure what your concern is there. I would hope you would be happy to have water, sewer, and natural gas in Main Street in front of your properties. So with regard to maximizing, I would say that Marv and Tom Peterson, who helped him lay these lots out, weren't shooting for the maximum number of parcels. They were shooting for a logical parcel configuration that was considered of topography as well as access. So really, to answer your question, no, this isn't maximizing it. It could probably be stretched to perhaps to one more lot. I'm not sure if we can meet the dimensional requirements or not. But from a density perspective, it's quite a bit lower than if you were to just simply take and divide that 40,000 square feet by 5,000. That would be 8 lots, doing the math that way, and we're proposing 6.
I understand that perfectly, but I just, the amount of land in Georgetown is very limited, and, utilizing what we do have here, we're not gonna be able to carve out the mountain to build more houses or whatever. And using the property, using the land to the best ability, for growth.
Yeah, I understand it, and I agree. And Marv, if you want to jump in, that's fine. But given the dimensional requirements and the area requirements and the combination of those two things, yeah, I think this is about, if not the max, it may be one lot short of the max, but it's the one that makes the most sense, I think, from a development perspective.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay, how about Gary F? Do you have any comments? If you do, you can go ahead.
Craig, I'm just curious if you could go back to the Biddle Street right-of-way Adobe thing. I'm just, question of curiosity, actually. How are you going to get a driveway down into lot 8? It's so steep there. Between the traveled way and the edge of the right of way is very steep.
Bridge, do a bridge.
Thanks, Gary. Good question. So these are the upper lots here, lots 6, 7, and 8 are all likely to be designed as walkouts. And so you'll have a lower level living area that will walk out kind of down to the west here. But your primary access will be up here to your main living areas. So we won't actually be building a driveway down into it. The house will basically be built, for lack of a better term, kind of out and over it, contoured with the land, if you will, with that walkout. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. But where would the driveway be along that easterly property line of lot 8?
Probably right in this area. Again, we won't be jumping into this steep topography over here on the northeast side. The likely building site is over here, kind of more central and southern portion of the property, where the topography is not nearly so steep.
Okay. All right, very good. I think that's it for me.
Thank you.
Can I ask Gary what your last name is, please?
Yes, it's Faselt, F-A-S-E-L-T.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Jen, I think is that all we had?
I believe so, yes. Let me check again. Yeah. Yep, that's everybody.
There's one on the phone.
Question on the chat, Jennifer, if you can ask a question on the
Oh,
chat.
Jennifer,
I'm sorry.
Jennifer,
Yes.
this is
Go
Bob
ahead.
Gibbs.
Okay.
May I speak?
Yep, go ahead, Bob.
Thank you. My name is Bob Gibbs, and my wife and I live at the corner of 9th and Biddle, and we have for 50 years. And I'm a former chairman of the Planning Commission and a longtime member of the DRC and a promoter of historic preservation. I really believe this development fits into what makes Georgetown so charming, because it meets the size and scale and scope of the buildings to the land. I think Marvin mentioned 12 years ago there was a concept of a large, I guess I'll, for the better name, call it a trophy home on that property. And at the time I thought, well, that's not really the best use. If it was divided into lots, which are, as I understand, 5,000 square feet as opposed to 3,750, and 6 buildings, and I'm all in favor of that, keeping size and scope into the visual, final visual that the properties will have, that they won't be out of scale and in that neighborhood. Furthermore, no, I'll leave that right there. But the quaintness of Georgetown, and having been on the boards of the planning and the DRC at the time of all the development and change, it was really worked hard, and that's why people are coming here now. You hear it all the time. The developer also, this was my last thought, the developer also has a track record of doing a very nice development in the Meadows called the Major Anderson. And the way that was set in and developed, it was really an essential I was on the planning commission when there were other plans for the meadows, and that one fit in so nicely, and it's well done, well built. So, amen. Thank you for all the hard work with the planning commission and the developer, and we hope to see the development soon. Thank you.
Thanks, Bob. Okay, I see there's a question from Michael in the chat, like Jerry was pointing out. I don't know if you can see that.
Just go ahead and read it, Jennifer.
Just read it.
Okay. Are there also 2 lots to the north of the property which will also be developed? I remember that we were told that 1 home would be put on these 2 lots.
You want to answer that, Craig?
Sure. Yeah, there are 2 existing platted lots, lots 1 and 2, on the north of the subject property. Those are existing platted lots. They actually appear on the original town plat. And yes, it is likely that there will be development on those lots as well. And yes, it is likely that it will consist of 1 single family residence as opposed to 2, given some of the restraints on the east side of lot 1, which is the one to the back, if you will, and away from Main Street.
Next page.
Am I allowed to talk?
Sure, go ahead.
When you say likely, Greg, does that mean you could change and put two houses on there, or is that a commitment to just have 1 house?
Well, I'll let Marv speak to commitment or not, but nothing said. Those are 2 legally platted lots that really aren't the subject of the rezoning. They're part of the neighborhood, to be sure, but they each carry with them, a use by right for construction of a single family residence. So, Marv, do you want to add anything?
No, I think what you said is correct. They're not part of the discussion that we're having tonight, but I will say, because there's probably curiosity, yes, there will be a house on compatible with the rest of the development on lot 1, and lot 2 is not going to have a house on it. It might have a garage or something like that, but there are not going to be 2 houses there. It's just not conducive to it. And 10th Street is unvacated, so there is access from either the front on Main or the side on 10th.
Thank you for clarifying that.
You're welcome.
Is that all we have, Jen?
Yep, I believe that's all we've got.
All right. Well, the applicant has responded to all the questions. Do we have any staff response to the questions from the public?
I don't have anything additional. I don't know if Martin has anything additional.
No, I don't have anything additional at this point.
All right, well, we'll close the public hearings. No further comment from applicant or the public.
Why don't you state the time, Dwayne?
Yeah, as I was looking at here, it's 7:10. And then we'll move on to the board commission deliberation on the preliminary plat recommendation.
Within the staff report, there is a recommendation regarding possible actions that can be taken by the planning commission.
Yes,
and Martin, I don't know if you wanted to speak to that, or Dwayne, you can read those off if you want to, or take it from there.
It's up to you, Martin. Did you have anything to say?
Well, if I could find that list, I could. I could. I can also read it off too.
I can share your
Okay.
share my screen.
We could recommend approval of the Washington Mill preliminary plat to the Board of Selectmen based on the application and staff report. We could recommend approval of the Washington Mill preliminary plat to the Board of Selectmen based on the information in the staff report with the following conditions. We could recommend denial of the Washington Mill preliminary plat to the Board of Selectmen based on the information in the staff report, or continue for action on the Washington Mill preliminary plat to such date to resolve issues identified.
Yeah, and I had asked Martin, and it probably came to you late, Dwayne, as far as we discussed it a bit more, and this was a tight time frame because the staff wrote, we had to wait for all the referral comments to come in before finishing the staff report. And the referral comments had until Friday to come in. And then Martin was able to complete the staff report and send it out. We were able to send it out to you Tuesday. So that's a tight time frame. But we did discuss regarding the possible conditions if the board would want to consider those. And again, this is just a recommendation to the Board of Selectmen. This is not an approval. The approval of the preliminary plat is by the Board of Selectmen. The Planning Commission here is acting as an advisory body to the Board of Selectmen. And then the Board of Selectmen can take your advice, they can ignore it, they can take some of your advice, whatever they want to do as far as the actual approval of the preliminary plat. In the staff report, there was a couple things that were presented that could be included as conditions. And, you know, Craig had, as representing the applicant, had answered some of those questions. But as going forward, there was some things, and I don't know whether to read it or to, I think I have it available to share the screen to show what could be. But again, it's just what could be. It isn't, you know, it's just the staff taking a look at it as far as things that could be done with it. Let me see here. Martin, am I saying anything out of line, or
No, I
how
think
this is looking?
got it. I do have this in front of me if you want me to read the items that we're talking about here, but if you can share your screen, that'd probably be more effective.
And it was just like you said, Dwayne, and you know, the motion to recommend to approve is the first one without any conditions. Number two is recommend to approve with some conditions. And it basically speaks to the soil testing and the materials mitigation plan, as Craig was pointing out. It has 3 different items there: that additional soil testing be performed on all proposed lots. And, you know, Craig made a good point of showing where the mill waste was located and what the question was. It's really just trying to answer for any of the proposed property owners. What staff was considering is, how do you answer them saying, you know, it has all been addressed. And that basically all 3 go to that concern regarding the additional soil testing be performed on all proposed lots. The soil testing report be submitted to the town manager or town administrator. That mitigation of contaminated soils occur prior to the development of any residential lots. Craig may have a reply to that as far as those conditions, but I'll go through the other items here first. The third one is basically the same, the motion to recommend that the town board disapprove the preliminary plat. And then the fourth one is motion to table or continue the meeting here until additional soil testing, or if there's another condition that seems alarming or seems something that should be investigated first. That's always an option for the Planning Commission to do, is continue it until they have some additional information. There's been quite a bit of information provided So, that may not be as likely for the Planning Commission board. But that's the motions with a little bit different than what was presented in your packet. And you can take any one of those and you can change it to what you prefer. So does that make sense to the Planning Commission board, what's been presented there?
Yes.
And then I don't know if, I know spoke with it briefly with Craig earlier today. And he had mentioned something regarding the materials mitigation plan with it. And I don't know if he wants to reply with that as well, but he laid out a pretty good case regarding the materials mitigation plan and what it provides as presented in your packet. So.
And you'd need to reopen the hearing, remembering that we've closed the hearing. And so now we're at
right.
Commission deliberation. There has been, of course, evidence presented by the applicant on soils mitigation and what they would propose, to do. And I would expect that if this gets onto the Board of Selectmen, they'd address these three things. If you go with
Thank you for that
motion 2.
correction, Jerry.
Yeah. So unless there's a dire need to open up the hearing again, and which you're able to do, but the sort of the point of taking it all in and then closing it and getting into action mode is so that you can get into action mode. Up to you.
If I could make a motion to make the number 1 motion to recommend that the town board approve the mill site preliminary subdivision plat as presented. That's my motion.
Mr. Chairman, are you going to ask for a second?
Yeah, can I have a second, please? I'll second it.
Discussion?
Yeah, I would really like to see, as an amendment to that motion, that we take up at least item C under 2C, that mitigation of contaminated soils occurs prior to the development of any residential lots.
Agreed.
I agree with Kathy.
Yeah, I agree.
Is that okay with you, Ed?
Yes, it is.
Mhm.
I'm sure that they will do it anyway, but yes, it's okay.
Mr. Chairman, you can have the motion be amended informally by the maker of the motion consenting and by the second, which I think was you, consenting. So if the maker of the motion consent and the second consent, then the motion number 1 can be considered to have been amended to include item 2C.
Okay.
And that's the motion now that's in front of the commission for discussion.
Okay, so do we need to second that again then?
No, because you were the second and you consented to the change.
Yeah.
All right, so then we just do all in favor, correct?
Unless there's, as the chair, you always ask if there's any further discussion on the motion. There may be.
All right. Is there any further discussion on the motion?
No.
No.
Nope.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed?
Any
When
opposed?
you're on Zoom, you really need to ask and make sure Jennifer really needs to make sure everyone's accounted for.
Dwayne, why don't you ask them each individually?
All right, gotcha. Can we get the full screen back up? Because all I see is you. That would really help. That's if I could see you.
You don't want to see me?
You
Okay.
don't know who we are.
No, I just can't see anybody's reaction.
Have Jennifer just call through the list and they can say aye or nay.
All right, Jennifer. Go
Okay.
ahead.
All right. Kathleen Heft,
Aye.
Ed Hoover,
Aye.
Ann Wilkins,
Aye.
and Denise Newton.
Aye.
Okay, so all in favor.
And Mr. Chairman,
Yeah, you missed me.
Oh, I'm so sorry, Dwayne. Gosh.
Okay.
Chairman votes aye.
Aye. Yes.
Motion carries.
Perfect.
Good.
Thank you all. So,
Looks like Craig has a question or has his hand raised.
Yeah, it's just, if I could get a copy of that document that Kent showed on his screen, that's the first I've seen of that, so. just for our
Sure, I
records.
can send that to you. Yeah.
Thank you.
I appreciate all your consideration here. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark.
Thank you.
Thanks, Barb.
All right, we'll move on to motion to approve the meeting minutes from December 16th, 2020.
Second,
I move to approve the minutes.
I'll second.
Okay. I think that was Ann that moved and Denise
Yes.
seconded, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Correct.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
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 Good night, Jerry.
All right, well, I moved that the meeting to be adjourned. All in favor, say aye.
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 All right, thanks, guys. Have a great evening.
Thank
Night.
you.
Good night.
Good night.
That should have gone through.
No,
and
Um,
should have- and I think you-
I know.
Did you not